Okay, we need to speak about Sergio Perez. Again. The other day, a retirement at the end of the season rumour came out about the Mexican driver. I mentioned about it in my 2025 predictions video. This rumour was denied and laughed off by sources close to Checo, but I'm gonna speak about it anyway, because I'm opting to wait on saying, yeah, I agree this is false, until we get past the Mexican Grand Prix weekend with no announcement of something along the lines of, breaking news! Sergio Perez is set to retire from Formula 1 at the end of the 2023 season. We have time and again seen rumours go around, be dismissed as false by the people they're about, but then they end up being true. Allow me to go through and summarise what this person posted on r/Formula 1. According to this, Red Bull told Perez during the Japanese Grand Prix weekend that they'll be ending things 1 year early, at the end of this year and not at the end of 2024 as was originally contracted. Perez and co then apparently started poking around to see if there was any chances for another seat, but a couple of problems cropped up. 1. No available seats, and 2. The Mexican's reputation having been pretty damaged in the last few months. This goes on to say that it was then decided by Checo and co. It was time to call it quits on Formula 1 and his retirement will be announced at the Mexican Grand Prix. As I said, this was laughed off and dismissed by sources close to Checo apparently, but also as I said, I'm gonna hang fire on believing that this is true or false until after Mexico. I can definitely see it being true because it sounds pretty reasonable and I genuinely could see Red Bull canning Checo a year early, especially when you take into account next season. And it looks like Red Bull will face a much tougher competition there than they did this year, with McLaren on the way up, Ferrari lurking, Mercedes looking to come back to the top. All three of those teams have decently strong lineups, and as things stand right now, Red Bull don't have that with Max and Checo. And if they do end up keeping Checo and this poorer form from him continues, it could be detrimental to them. And I'm not just speaking about the Constructors' Championship, it could be harmful to, say, Verstappen's chances at a 4th consecutive Drivers' Championship. Because if, say, for argument's sake, let's say in 2024, we get a 3-way title fight between Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and Lewis Hamilton. Let me dream, okay? I personally love to see this title fight. Hamilton will be able to rely on Russell to be there as his wingman to back him up. Leclerc will be able to rely on Sainz to be there as his wingman to back him up. But Verstappen might not always be able to rely on Perez to be up there with him as his wingman. Because Perez, he's tended to be a bit further away from Verstappen and they've not been as close as, say, Leclerc and Sainz and Hamilton and Russell. And then you get into these 2v1 situations where your rivals can gang up on you and cover whatever strategy you might decide to do because they have 2 cars and you don't. But on the other hand, I could see this being false because, I mean, rumours go around all the time in F1. But away from that rumour, I then saw that apparently Red Bull have given Perez an ultimatum. That if he doesn't finish P2 in the Drivers' Championship, he'll be replaced by Daniel Ricciardo. That makes complete sense when you take into account everything I just said about next year, and also the car Red Bull have had this year. Adrian Newey designed a rocket ship this year, and with a car like the RB19, where the competition isn't exactly as close as it's been in previous years, you would expect them to have been able to have a very nice and easy cruise to a 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship, something Red Bull have never achieved before. But that's not the case, as Hamilton is closing in on Perez. How easy it'll be for Hamilton to overtake him for P2, well, I don't know, Kane. That'll depend on how strong Mercedes plan on being in these remaining 5 races and how Checo is going to be performing. Because it's safe to say his last 3 weekends in Qatar, Japan and Singapore have been gawping, to say the least. Red Bull have said before a lot that they'll see out Checo's contract length, they won't dump him early, but we all know that what Red Bull say and what Red Bull do are 2 very different things. Case in point, 2019 Hungarian Grand Prix, the final race before the summer break. Red Bull say there are no plans for a mid-season swap. Pierre Gasly will not lose his drive mid-season. Literally like 2 weeks later, breaking news! Alex Albon to replace Pierre Gasly at Red Bull, the Frenchman demoted back to Toro Rosso. Need I say more, need I say less? I don't just want to shit on Perez here because he has had his moments. He has had a pretty solid Formula 1 career. He's won 6 races. He was rapid in Baku this year, winning both the sprint and the feature race. He was solid in Saudi Arabia as well, kind of picking up the pieces after Max had his problems in qualifying. It's just a shame he hasn't been able to keep that up throughout the season. He was really solid when he first joined joined Red Bull as well. Red Bull didn't really, in my eyes anyway, hire him with the same vision, if you will, as they did with Gasly and Albon, where I think the goal was to try and get someone who could match up to Max, but rather they went for like he could be reliable and there when Max isn't, to be a solid wingman in that kind of more number 2 role. And to be fair, Checo did do that. He was good in 2022 as well, and before he joined Red Bull back in 2020 when he was with Racing Point, he ended up having a great season, including that mega win in Sakir after he was last at the end of lap 1. But this year things just completely fell apart for him. After he was in a position where he was in a championship fight, everything just fell apart for him rather quickly, and honestly he hasn't really been the same since. I have seen it reported that apparently Checo had previously requested to drive the pre-Barcelona spec RB19 to change back to that, but this request got denied by the team, so they weren't bringing 2 different cars. Whether that would have helped Checo or not in his poor form in proving that, who knows, but it doesn't take a genius to recognize that he was better at the start of the season than he has been doing as the season went on. So perhaps changing back to an earlier spec to RB19 would have helped him not struggle as much, but Watkins, if going back to an earlier spec car would have hampered Red Bull at all. It might have, especially when you look at the way the competition, mainly McLaren in terms of the regularity of being their main challenger, and a couple weekends here and there Ferrari and Mercedes having closed in. Not in terms of hampered them in the championship, I think they still would have gone there regardless, but you know what I mean. Regardless of if any of the rumors I've spoken about are true, I think Perez could do with time away from racing in Formula 1, because in all of the poor form and difficult weekends he's had this year, that's got to have had an impact on his mentality, and having the right mentality is part of the game at the end of the day. Look at Daniel Ricciardo. His mentality took a knock at McLaren. He took some time off from full-time racing and now he's back racing again, and yes, he was back for all of 2 races, but judging how impressed Red Bull were by his Silverstone test, that break seems to have done him the world of good. Perhaps the same could happen for Checo, or perhaps he should just walk away from Formula 1 altogether and go do something else entirely. I do think he could do with a break though. But elsewhere in the world of Red Bull racing, there's reports that things aren't quite smooth sailing. This has been reported by O Globo, and the report is that there's tension between Horner and Marko. The gist of it is I think Red Bull might want Marko out or something, with Horner reportedly wanting to get control of Red Bull's racing activities, and apparently he's trying to get rid of Yuki Tsunoda, who apparently isn't seen as an option for the Austrian team long term by him. The report basically was that there was apparently or will be a meeting regarding Marko's future at Red Bull, and this has been denied by Marko. He has a contract till the end of next year. Yada yada yada. It's on the screen now. I saw this whilst I was editing the video, but still thought I would give it a mention. There is a lot of rumors going around surrounding Red Bull, you know, isn't there? It does make me think that there's something going on over at the Austrian team behind the scenes, but then again, we all could just be reading too much into things, and all these rumors could just be that. Rumors. But time will tell. What do you think of the Perez retirement rumors? Do you think we'll see Perez bow out of Formula 1 at the end of the season? Do you think he'll be in that Red Bull car full 2024? Do you think Red Bull will see out his contract? Or do you think he'll be replaced mid-season 2024, before the season even starts? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.